It's Tuesday, and so today's the day that we set aside to get updated in the city of Elko news. And just in time, our city vice mayor, Councilwoman Mandy Simons, joins us for an update. Mandy, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thanks. Happy to be here.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry.
You're okay.
Not.
There
we
you
go. I know better.
No,
Sorry.
you're perfect. We appreciate all that you're doing on behalf of the council and the city. And last week was no exception. On the 23rd, another regular council meeting, and I know you have an arts and culture advisory board meeting tomorrow.
Yep, tomorrow, so, yeah.
Yes.
There's several things on that agenda that will be fun. That's kind of the funnest board to be on, I think. But
yeah.
But yeah, so we had a meeting last week, and one of the most exciting things I thought is that we got an update on Boys and Girls Club. And so for those of you that are interested in that, they're actually hoping to break ground on May 16th to have a groundbreaking. That's their goal. They had a little gap in fundraising, and so they came to the city, and we had that money. Of course, we always have lots of recreational projects that we can use it for, but we decided this is something our community really needs, so we voted to go ahead and help them fill that gap so that they, I believe now, are fully funded for the rec center. They did make a point of saying that the event center is still going strong, but that will be a later project. They've got a few different locations, I guess, that they're looking at, and I think that project is still evolving in some ways, and so, but they haven't forgot that. For those of you that are excited about that, that's still something that they're planning on. But we all know that the pool is a priority, and so they kind of gave us a layout of the whole building, what they're going to do with everything, and it's going to be great. It's going to be really exciting for our community. So they're going to go ahead and hopefully break ground in May, and then later on they talked about how when they do the rec center, they're going to do geothermal at the same time. The geothermal has a users group, people who take advantage of that loop, and the infrastructure is very, very old and it's not really functional right now, and it needs a huge upgrade. And so they have identified some grants and things that can be used for such projects. And so they want to do that at the same time as the rec center. Obviously, if they can get the rec center on geothermal, that's a huge cost savings for them. I mean, that'd be very, very beneficial. I know that they are going to approach the school district to see if they'd like to be a partner with that. The school district is in a position and has been for the last couple of years where cash is quite tight. And so I don't know that they're going to be able to, but there could be a partnership with the Boys and Girls Club and somebody else. That is certainly an option. But they're moving forward, it sounds like. It's going to be an amazing building. I know that they've talked about what a generous donation NGM made, as well as several others. And I don't have all their names written down, but a lot of people have stepped forward to make this happen. It has been a joint effort by many, many, many entities, which is kind of awesome. When you see these public-private partnerships, that's the way you get things done in communities like ours. And so going forward, maybe this can be a blueprint for how we can get things done in the future, because a lot of projects are hard for one entity to do alone. But if we work together, then awesome things can happen. And in a couple of years, hopefully we will see the fruition of that when the doors open to this rec center.
It was, as you mentioned, there is a notice that's just gone out, Boys and Girls Clubs inviting the community to the groundbreaking ceremony, and they're calling it now the Nevada Gold Mines Recreation Center.
I had not seen that. That's very appropriate, super appropriate. They really did step up. I was talking to somebody the other day about, it might have been my kids, that I was weirdly trying to explain how these mining taxes work. One of them was talking with some kids from Eureka about their schools, and they were like, what in the world? They have the nicest of everything. And I had to explain, well, the mining tax goes here. And I feel like the mines obviously know that. And so they're very generous with us and with so many projects that happen in our community. So that's very fitting. And That's awesome. I had not heard that, but I think that's wonderful news. And like I said, very, very appropriate. They really did step up to make this happen.
Excellent. I just saw that on a social media post. And Nevada Gold Mines Recreation Center groundbreaking is, as Councilwoman Simon said, May 16th, 5 p.m. So I believe that's Thursday afternoon on site, 1501 College Avenue. That's where the existing city pool is. So there'll be no mistaking it. The city did vote to contribute. It was unanimous. It's $1.8 million total from the rec fund, but it's in 2 increments, Mandy, and that's important to know. There'll be 2 budget cycles.
Yeah, exactly. We, I think I made that motion, but I thought that maybe it was better to spread it out because we don't want to abandon every other rec project and every other thing that needs to get done. And so if we can spread it out a bit. And we did kind of point out that, like, we want this and we would have had to build this otherwise, and we didn't know how we were going to get that done. And so we're happy to step forward. But hopefully the county and other entities will step forward when it comes to the event center, because we really have, I think, stretched that budget quite thin. So again, we were happy to do it, but hopefully other people can step forward too when it comes to the event center, because we'd love to have both in our community. I think that they'd both be assets.
Right, and the city is, as you said, been very generous with the 1.8, the land that was contributed, although some of it's going to continue in a lease fashion to accommodate that encumbrance.
Yeah.
$400,000 a year to operate the pool. That will go toward the Boys and Girls Club's budget, but that way they can maintain the pool, make sure that it's open to everyone. You won't have to be a Boys and Girls Club's member.
Right, they were very, very clear on that. Nobody has to be a member to go. That will be open to everybody, the whole community. And we were basically losing $400,000 every year to that pool. And so it was kind of a situation where, at least initially, it looked to us as, hey, we're going to build this, give us the land, and just keep paying that $400,000, and you don't have to have any of the headache that goes with it. Again, in the end, we did contribute another $1.8 million. But still, I don't know how we would have funded that. It's just very, very hard to do that. You have prevailing wage, and then you try to save some, but then the prices go up, or you go out to bid. But that's just a coin toss, really. You never know how that's going to happen, or not go out to bid. I'm sorry, go out to bond. You never know how that's going to happen, and if it gets voted down, you're up a creek. So hopefully, in the end, this will work out, and we will be grateful that we did this. And $400,000 a year is a very reasonable investment to make sure that our citizens that pay city taxes have access to a facility like this, because they really don't right now. We're trying to keep the old pool limping along, but it's not in all its glory by a long shot. It's really one of those projects that probably should have been done yesterday. But money's tight. It's the same situation we were in with the police station years ago. That was a project that should have been done yesterday, but trying to get money is just so hard. And so I think it's a win-win for everyone.
Absolutely. A lot of confidence, and looking forward to seeing all the other Boys and Girls Clubs efforts have been realized in places, in Spring Creek and here in Elko. And I know the governor talked about this recently at both the Gold Rush Mine Tour and at Owyhee schools. The interim finance committed $16.5 million to Boys and Girls Clubs statewide to expand their early learning centers. I mean, there's a desperate need for childcare.
Yeah, and I know that Boys and Girls Club has made that a priority as well. So it's great when you have entities that are so invested in the community, Boys and Girls Club and the mines, and we have a lot of great partners.
We really do. And there are a lot of other entities, too, as you've mentioned, too, along the way that help make this possible. So it does roll into the next conversation, which during public comments, we know that Bob Heggie got up and he's helping with the museum expansion, which was recently approved by the city. I think it is important to note that city staff, our city manager, Jan Baum, and the assistant manager, Scott Wilkinson, have been working really hard and to make sure that all the needs have been met on the encumbrance, because this expansion takes up city park space, Mandy. But we also know that, some folks are saying, well, why did the museum expand in the first place? Well, the city has acknowledged that. We don't know. You weren't on the council then.
No. And it does make you ask the question, maybe it's better to ask forgiveness and permission, but that's not the way the city likes to operate. Once we realized what was going on, okay, I don't know how we got away with that, and none of us
more than 20 years ago.
Yeah, none of us that are dealing with it now were there. I'm sure it was an honest mistake that they just didn't realize. But now that we do know about it, we want to do it right. We want to do the right thing. And so we're going to try to deal with that so that, I mean, you'd hate for it to come back on the museum, really. And so it's just going to be a process. We do have to go through, because we did take monies from, it was like a federal grant or some sort of program.
For green space.
For green space, you're right. Mm-hmm. And so we do need to go ahead and just make sure that we do it the right way. And it could take some time because it's called bureaucracy, and that's just the way that we work.
But in the meantime, the city got approval from the state. It's all important to mention. All this has been discussed in public meetings. The city did get approval from the state, can proceed with the museum expansion. They've got the green light. Bob Heggie got up and said, yep, we're already consulting with the architect.
Right.
The museum's committing $1 million. Nevada Gold Mines, once again, as you said, in their generosity, they'll commit anywhere from $7 to $12 million.
Yeah.
It'll be the Nui Cultural Center, and then a underground component with a mining exhibit.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really cool. And because at one point they were going to do an expansion, and that got approved by the state, and then they never did it, they said, as long as you stay kind of within that footprint that was already approved, go ahead and go forward. But in the future, there's a good probability that they're going to want to expand at some other point. And so we just want to get this whole encumbrance taken care of so that their future growth won't be inhibited by it.
And you have to think about why these encumbrances are set in the first place. It's because we've seen it happen in other communities, Mandy. Put in a museum, and then the next thing you know, some council or some board or committee decides, oh, well, let's go ahead and let McDonald's build right next to the museum. And they don't want to create. They want to create these nice buffers and keep their, preserve their open space so that you don't have a lot of commercial or even residential impacting these amenities.
Sure. And if you're the federal government and you give money to somebody for a purpose, and then they don't actually do that purpose, you can see why they have these rules in there. Like, I get it. And so that's why they just don't want us saying, hey, we're going to do this and give us this money and we'll have green space, and then, oh, just kidding, no green space. So I think that it's going to be fine, and I think that it's going to go smoothly, and that it's all going to work out. But for now, they do have to stay within that footprint that was already approved years ago, and then we can deal with the future in the future. But we want to make it as smooth as possible when it does come to that.
Talking with our Vice Mayor and Councilwoman, Mandy Simons. And have you met a more devoted group than pickleball players, Mandy? Because we also know that Bob spoke during public comment about their issue as well.
They are passionate people.
They are.
I happen to be well acquainted with some
It's delightful. Enthusiasts. Yes.
It can be, sure. It can be delightful. I know.
Well, I've explained they're on a different timeline. Some of them are a little more mature. I include myself in that category of being more mature. I understand the urgency.
Right, exactly. So saying, in 20 years. Yeah, so they really want better facilities, and projects in the city don't work like that. I do know there is a private group that is working on some sort of facility, and private entities can operate a lot faster than government entities. You just don't have to go through all the hoops. It's cheaper, and there's all these things. So hopefully that works out for them. I know that we did go ahead and dedicate $25,000, and apparently that was kind of scoffed at. They really thought that there should be a lot more. I know I kind of giggled a little because they were a bit appalled that we would spend more on weed abatement and making our whole community look nice than we would on pickleball. I mean, it's just a personal preference. I think whatever you're passionate about, you feel like that should be a priority for the city, and different. I mean, we had the charter school coming and saying, no, we should get some money. And we had the Boys and Girls Club saying, no, we should. It's just whatever your project is and whatever you're passionate about, you really feel like that should be the city's priority. And the truth is, we have to try to positively affect as many people as possible. And so we can give some to pickleball, but we also have to give some to other things. And so hopefully that $25,000 will do something, and hopefully this private group has just wild success, because it is a fairly popular sport in our community. There are lots of people that really enjoy it. And I know they do have facilities now to play. In the meantime, it's just not maybe a dream situation. And so, I wish them all the best. I it's hard for cities to move as fast as everybody would like them to.
Well, and once again, maybe Boys and Girls Clubs to the rescue, because Rusty got up during public comment and said, hey, we are part of this pickleball complex plan. So rest assured, he said, they've been working on it for a year, and they're going to be rolling out some plans for a pickleball complex in the next couple of months, he said.
Yeah, and that was great. I've actually, not necessarily by my choice, but maybe against my will, I have visited some complexes in other cities, and they're amazing. There really can be some cool things, outdoor, indoor. They'll have, spots where you can buy refreshments and lots of places for people to watch games
and gear and it's tournaments.
Yeah,
and
it can be a really cool thing. All ages, yeah. You'll have kids, you'll have, retirees and everything in between. And so it's, it can be awesome. And if somebody can make that happen, I wish them all the best. But yeah, having a private entity do things is quite often faster and cheaper than involving a bureaucracy. So hopefully that pans out. If not, then we'll just keep kind of chipping away at it and finding money where we can and doing what we can.
All right. Work in progress. Getting our update in the city from Elko City Vice Mayor, our Councilwoman, Mandy Simons. And as was mentioned too, just quickly on the event center, it also would be located within city limits, but more to the outskirts, according to Club's Director, Rusty Barr. He said at the city meeting there are at least 2 sites being considered, not only Kittredge Canyon. When he spoke to county commissioners, it was just the Kittredge site, but now he's talking about exit 298 at Komatsu as well.
Yeah,
so either one of those.
Komatsu.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that means that the in-town location has just been completely thrown out, or if that's still on the table as well.
You mean by the fairgrounds?
Yes. Did they decide?
I don't think, because of the encumbrance on, the encumbrance is on.
Is that on Kump Field as well?
I don't think it's on Kump. So if they had to vacate Kump,
I think
they needed the other field for parking.
Well, and maybe that's the case. I'm not sure, but the point is that they have that's what I'm saying. It's evolving. I don't know if they're going to get to use it for all the purposes. They really did want to be able to coordinate with the fairgrounds and use it in that way. And I don't know that that's on the board anymore. They're trying to identify other locations that might still be useful. I know that people have talked about facilities similar to it in other communities similar to ours that are just, built it and they came in hordes and don't have enough room and enough space. And so I think it would be a great entity to have.
Yeah, and the county has set aside $15 million toward that project, so they do have a good start on that. And I think was the urgency in the Boys and Girls Club's presentation to the county is, hey, we're still working on this. We're just trying to get the best location, and I think that's what he wanted the community to know. So
yeah, and I think Boys and Girls Club probably has their hands full for a little while with the first building, and then they'll move on. But I think, as soon as they identify the best place for it, then I know that they'll get that ball rolling. And
then we'll start talking more about, Mandy, because I know the community is asking about Elko Convention Center, wanting to make sure that that's whole and that the balloon payment's paid, and that the fairgrounds is also whole in the future, because if the event center is not near it, we want to make sure we can preserve and support all these entities.
Right,
too, so.
Right, yeah, and it's hard, that...
we don't want to get overbuilt.
No, and the convention center was a tough situation because I think that there was not as much forethought into that, because I think they just assumed, we don't need to do anything different. That balloon payment, it will just be there. We're just busy and it will be there. And
they didn't factor in COVID.
No, and so maybe a more concrete plan had been needed, and so hopefully, lesson learned. But we know that they're busy, and the fairgrounds are busy, and like I said, these other entities are basically telling us we're sending away events that want to be held in Nevada. And so we would love to be able to send them to you. And if that's true, then I think it would be great. But the fairgrounds could obviously use some TLC. And it's just, I think it's
it is landlocked.
It's landlocked.
Yeah.
There's never enough money to go around. And so it's just hard. And I know that they'll take all that into consideration. And I don't know what the city's involvement in that project will be, but I know that those involved will take all that into consideration and try to make the best choice possible.
All right. Thanks, Mandy. Again, updating on some of the most recent developments. And speaking of, too, when you were talking about everybody, different passions, and we do know the RDA Sidewalk Project has to be postponed. You made the motion on that as well. Interesting debate in that period of time, maybe between now and next year, they can figure out the trees, because that was kind of an issue for some people. Yeah.
Right, yeah. We want trees, but we don't want them there. We would really like them there. And so they're going to have to go back to the drawing board a little bit.
And smooth out the differences,
And hopefully find some middle ground, because I think when you're an engineer and planning where to put trees, there's things you have to take consideration. And when you're a business planning where to put trees, you have to take different things into consideration. And so I don't know what they'll decide. We want trees, but
in the downtown corridor.
Maybe it's not worth the hassle. Do we say no trees? Do we say little trees? Do we say, oh, sure, we can move all the trees, it's not that big of a deal? Or no, that's going to cause these problems? I don't know. But they have another year to really look into that.
Yeah, that was disappointing in that the sidewalk project, I know city planners were really looking forward to going ahead, but it came in way over bid, and only one bid on the project too.
Yeah.
So,
and we wouldn't have, it was too much money to start with. So we're going to try it again, and we're going to bid earlier in the season. Sometimes when people don't have their whole, building season planned out, the bids come in a bit better. And so we're going to try that next spring, early next spring, maybe late winter.
All right. Looking over the agenda, there was a lot of stuff on here, certainly.
It was a busy agenda, for sure.
And as you mentioned, some consideration of expanding a donation to the Elko Institute for Academic Achievement. That is a charter school in Elko. Charter schools do get public school funding, part of the school's distributive account to help pay for their operating costs, but they don't get money for capital. And we do know the Elko Charter School relocated to the old mines building. I don't know if it was a barrack, over on Silver. Mm-hmm. So they had to do some engineering and install some signs. But that's where the request came in for the city.
Yeah, I think there was a misstep somewhere in leaving the signs out of maybe the budget or the estimate, and so we're going back and trying to fix all that. And it was a hard decision, because you want to support schools, but we want to support all schools, but they don't get the same funding that all schools. Anyway, it was a bit complicated, and in my opinion, the estimate for the signs was not even on this planet. It was really off the charts. So in the end, we decided we'd already made some donation towards kind of the traffic situation over there that they're going to have to change. Schools require certain things, and so they're going to have to do some of that. And we made a donation towards that, and then we did go ahead and provide some of what they asked for, but not the whole amount. And so hopefully that helps them. We, of course, want them to be very, very successful. I know a lot of kids really enjoy their time over there, and so hopefully they can get that finished up. I think that they've really done a lot of work over there already.
And then that space will soon be occupied, the one they're vacating over on Railroad Street. Mm-hmm. I call it the old Builder's Mart. I've been here a long time.
I did not know there was a Builder's Mart there.
Builder's Mart there. So I call it the old Builder's Mart building, but they're there, they're vacating, going to their fabulous new space, and they, a lot of moving parts there. But then we have another charter school coming in just behind it. So they're going to start out with, I think, K through third grade to get going.
Yeah, K through second or K through third, the Classic Academy. And I know they're working on their approval with the state.
Yeah, they should hear sometime soon.
Yeah, and so that will be some more kids that if they think that's a better fit. We've had actually a phenomenal experience in our public schools here, but I know different kids have different needs, and I'm sure that there'll be plenty of kids that find a good fit with the Classical Academy and continue to find a good fit with the
Elko
how many
Institute for Academic Achievement. Yep.
There you go. I know it's like EIAA, EIO.
Yes.
I always get confused. But yeah, I know a lot of kids have had a phenomenal experience there. And so I think that it's great. I think choice is great. I think having options is super.
In the case of radio stations, I think it strengthened all of us, because when I first moved to Elko, we were KELK, and then I believe KLKO was added. D. Ray Gardner did that. It was easy, beautiful listening music, at which, his son argued and said, "Nobody's listening, Dad." And then, I digress certainly, but just saying. And then, KRJC obviously came on the air. That was the country music station out of Salt Lake, but they're local. KRJC is now part of our family, but all that competition simply serves to make us better. So
Yeah,
that's the goal anyway.
Yeah,
As long as you have an equal playing field.
It meets different people's needs, and it can motivate others to rise up. And so, yeah, I'm sure it'll be great for a lot lot of folks.
So I don't know how we got off on that topic,
You know
but that's
what? We're
okay.
good at it.
We are good at
the
it.
tangents.
Yes,
it's
yes.
really great. Yeah.
So let's see. Anything else on the city council agenda that you want to make sure? I know RDA was the meeting that led up to that. We talked about the big decision on the RDA, which was the sidewalk project being delayed for a year.
Yes, absolutely. What did we do? We appointed a new member to the Park and Recs board, Mr. Willard Burnham.
Oh yeah, he seems very nice. Yes.
Yeah, he's great. His family's great. And so I think that's exciting. That'll be great for them. And we did lots of little kind of housekeeping things for the Boys and Girls Club.
Regarding easements, so they can get
Right.
construction going.
Right.
Yeah.
So just all those I's that have to be dotted and T's have to be crossed. I did want to point out, what was I going to point out? It's an amazing question, but where was that at?
And
the City Hall boiler.
Oh yes, that is on my list too.
And,
Yes.
and the City Hall is probably one of those buildings that's going to be in the near future, now that hopefully we've got the pool situated. Build new, add on, revamp, whatever. But there is a boiler situation there that we just really desperately needed to take care of. And so we went ahead and authorized them to solicit bids for that project.
And I might be out on a limb, but I do like City Hall. I like that Arnie Perhonen building. So I'm hoping that somewhere, some way, if you do end up either adding or, because the addition that's on it, that was done well. That was well planned. Yeah. But if you have to build new, you've got modulars in the back, you've got land.
Yeah, we do. And I know that in the past, that's one option that they have talked about. You could build like a 2-story building in the back, really, and add on and just do some
and preserve
renovations.
That chamber. And,
sure,
yeah.
But I don't know what's feasible, and that will be, I'm sure, after my time. And so
that's true. You're coasting now, aren't you?
I am coasting.
You're making a lot of tough decisions, by the way. You're making motions left and right.
I know. Well, I don't know, but
it was good. It was fine, I'm sure. Yes.
But anyway, we're gonna try to. I'm sure they'll do a great job, and it'll work out, but I'm sure that's going to be a big project that will take a while to get going. And so for now, we're going to go ahead and fix that boiler.
And how much is that going to cost?
Well,
I don't remember the price.
Yeah, I didn't write it down.
I didn't write it down because I thought maybe it wasn't mentioned, but I do know it's pricey. You've been nursing boilers at the pool forever.
Cheap. Yeah, exactly. And so, we live in a place where you have extremes of both. You really have to have air conditioning. You really have to have heating. It's not really an option to go without. So we're going to go ahead and do that and keep it limping along until we figure out another solution.
All right. Councilwoman, thank you so much. And again, we did mention Arts and Culture Advisory Board. The community's invited. Mm-hmm. It'll be tomorrow, May 1st, 4:30 p.m. at City Hall. Yep. You can go sit in the chambers in the Arnie Perhonen design building, which, like I said, maybe I'm the only person that knows that.
That's right. If any of you are interested in the Dawdle, did I say that correctly?
Oh, that's right. The puzzle.
The puzzle. Yeah, I know that they're going to talk about that as well as several other projects.
The Sester Centennial Art Project.
The Sester Centennial Art Project. We're going to get an update on that and try to keep that moving. So some really cool projects. It really is a fun board.
Yes, and I think fun is operative. People can find things to disagree about. Generally, art is something that can bring people together. You hope.
It's not like, it's just always kind of cheerful. And cheerful people. Artists tend to be kind of fun.
Yeah. Oh, great. I know you have an artist, at least one in your family. So.
I do.
Yes.
I do. She's awesome.
She's cheerful. Okay.
And right now she's in the last week of the play at the high school, so I'm not sure if
she's in Shrek the Musical. Let's give that a quick plug, please.
So that's, I think they even start tomorrow. Normally it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but it seems like they might even do a show tomorrow, but that's this weekend over at the high school. If you want to go see Shrek the Musical, those kids have been working very, very hard, and it's going to be super fun. They have, I think it's at 6:30 each night, and then there's a matinee on Saturday, I believe. But
totally family friendly. It's Shrek the Musical.
Yeah, mm-hmm. It's going to be fun. And they had a meet and greet with like the characters, a character meet and greet the other day for kids, and they were amazing. They were just amazing. They really give their all to it. So if you're interested in that, that would be a fun thing to do this weekend.
It really would be nice. Please do. I know there's a lot of stuff going on this weekend, but there always is that first weekend in May. It kicks off. But so you have plenty of time ramping up to that to enjoy Shrek the musical. And my colleague here at the radio station, Logan Pierce's Props, helped to design some of those props.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think Sandy Beeler built some props as well. I mean, it's a community effort.
It really is. They have people sewing and making, the costumes, and then they make the fundraisers happen and all sorts of things going on.
And your daughter gets to be in the production.
She's the kind of stage manager. She, surprise, is good at bossing people around. I can't imagine where she got that from.
Where did she get that,
Mandy?
Yeah,
that's weird.
That's awesome.
So she's doing that. It's great.
Oh, well, thanks so much for filling us in. It's always a pleasure to visit with you, Mandy, and thanks again. And doing the heavy lifting, that's appreciated.
Oh, well,
so I hope you knew that I meant that as a compliment.
No,
I
of
didn't
course.
think. Okay.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you, listeners, for joining us for Elko Live today here on KELK.